So we're going to get started again for our second half. So our poetic opener tonight is Andrea McKenzie Raine. Andrea was born in Smithers, BC, and grew up in Victoria, BC, where she still resides. She published 2 books of poetry titled A Mother's String in 2005 and A Year of Mornings in 2017 through Ekstasis Editions, as well as several self-published poetry books, which she has to sell there, right? So let's give a big welcome to Andrea.
Thank you, Nancy. And I want to start by thanking Zoe for inviting me to be the poetic opener tonight. And I'm very excited also to be sharing this evening with Sally Ito. I have 2 lovely boys who are now 13 and 10. And I thought for this reading, well, they're my world. So I thought I'd take you all on a quick journey through my pregnancy and experience in motherhood. And I'm going to start with my book called Waiting. Firstborn. We create a portal this night with morning on our heels, a small door between us. We shimmy open to invite a small stranger. A question mark in my belly, a tightness of new living cells or indigestion. I throw down a cord, a lifeline, hoping for a bite. Grandmother spoke to me in a dream. Sex before marriage is best. I have never cared for basic math, loss and gain. This small plus sign could mean everything. This growing, joyous ache I feed from within. Count the emergent weeks and always in awe of you. Unborn. Walking in a light fog of tiredness and wonder, and the hope we ignited another bright being. Little bean sprout with your shy budding limbs, a sprig of light, a seed of dreams. This unrelenting desire to sleep under a blanket of motherhood, while your brother quietly questions your existence and tries to grasp your small being. Small bird fluttering, water baby swirls, all fingers, toes, and translucent wings. Your brother, a rubber ball, bounces on his hard knees and elbows. You sustain the soft blows, furled safely inside. Gardener of your soul, I turn the soil to no avail. A dry season, your life stunted in me. Born. Little hummingbird darts and flickers in and out with your fierce heart. Hope turns to promise. We watch your eager body twitch to dance, lips to speak. Little fish, you expand in your dark pool, filling with light. Weave your bright spool of thread. Determined heart beating your happy life. A quiet bubble, a place to think on your destiny. This fear in me dissolves with each small shift in my belly. Is it you or breakfast? Squirmy baby like your brother. Will either of you sit still for pictures? Last night I dreamed of your sister, the one who went back to the stars. She was happy you did come. Butterfly wings, your curious limbs like tiny chisels, softly burrowing into my sides, into my insides. After all the pokes, the intrusions, we learn what we knew, your perfect being. Little water bug, tiny warrior, you shield your precious heart. Battle angry red blood cells with a fork and knife in their hands. I collapse on the couch after a desk-sitting day, your brother's evening protests. You fussed at the outside chaos. You ride your tricycle deep in my belly. Tiny feet pedal towards the outside. Soft swirls of morning, you rise with the sun. Swift kicks of evening, you trace the patterns of the moon. Small hand on your head, hiding the secret thought of being unborn. Your brother marks you with his purple stamp. Do you know the love in his dimpled fist? And I'm quickly going to move on to my book called Spectrums and Apertures. And this journey is a bit nonlinear, so sorry for that. Postpartum. His small, contorted face was like a drunkard hearing last call. When he first tried to latch on and thought the tap was broken. Beet red, he pushed off and arched backward with his swimmer's legs. His fingers clawed at his cheeks and eye sockets, and my protective hands both soothed and restrained. I became a spectator in the critical hours, gone sideways like his small pretzel body. I watched the night nurse shove him onto my rough nipple and swat my hands away from his head. I watched her bring him to the bottle away from me, my hands tied and mute. I watched us become inmates, all three, waiting as the gap closed in my belly. I lay stitched to the bed and listened to the foreign cry of baby break the night apart. Buttons. My son won't hug me if I am wearing buttons. He is afraid they will mark his skin, unbutton him, or threaten to fasten his small body to the earth's tug. Moving clouds, something outside his childish realm, that place of constriction. I tell him the world is full of buttons. He scrutinizes the clothes I wear after weary days. Suspicious, he can smell desks and computers on me. Waits for a smooth shirt to embrace my unfurrowed brow, the time for home. Right. Web. With two small bodies attached to my hip, limbs, and hands, the garden is neglected. Dry roots turn brown as the underground starves. There are no seeds left to plant. The oak tree digs under the floors, uproots us with its giant foot, bullies its way into these walls, this fishbowl. Every crack gives way to scrutiny. Unfolded laundry, dishes piled high in the sink. My thoughts linked together slow, deliberate as Lego towers. Every loud word an echo. The fine work of spider caves, inches of dust. Okay, one more. Thanks. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to move ahead to my short one then. Sorry about that. Where you may find me. Speaking through separate random alphabet letters. Slaying dragons, rescuing princesses. Collecting coins and capturing stars. Briefly in the pages of a book. A warm bed in the embrace of small arms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was a lovely wander through a great experience. Thank you. So next we have our featured reader, Sally Ito. Sally is a writer, translator, and creative writing instructor from Winnipeg. Did you come all the way from Winnipeg? Yes. Wow, let's give her a hand. In her fourth book of poetry, Sally traverses the complex channels and tributaries of a heart mapped by the ineffable tides of family and faith. And we like to kind of go through, find something that you said in an interview or something. So here is a quote from Sally, which I find really fascinating. The traditional arts of Japan still hold a great appeal to me, in particular, those arts having to do with writing and text, as well as the visual and in crafts. There is a selfless quality to the Japanese arts that I feel very strongly sympathetic to, that is somewhat antithetical to the pervasive sense or need for self-expression that I see in Western art. So please welcome Sally Ito.
Hi, thank you very much for Planet Earth Poetry for hosting me. I'm very happy to be here. And that's a very interesting quote that you selected for me for the poems that I'll be reading. I just want to, I'm very fascinated by the visual arts, and I just want to show you my book covers, because my two book covers, my two poetry books, Alert to Glory and Heart's Hydrography, the cover was a kirie, a paper cut art that was designed by my uncle, Gen Tsuboi, in Japan. And my aunt, Michiko Tsuboi, she translated the titular poems and then again worked with the Japanese translation to create the images. And Alert to Glory is quite nice because it's spread across the back here like this. Yeah. So yeah. So this is I'm quite grateful to them for giving them the kind of signature look of my books. And my books are about family and faith, and in particular the Christian faith. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from Alert to Glory. Alert to Glory for me was published over 10 years ago now. And to me, this book is really about wonder. And this book really explores that. So I'll just read the preface here. Alert to Glory is above all the fruit and labor of the soul, and therefore dedicated to God, with whom the soul most richly desires communion. So, alert to glory. Alert to glory, to sunbreak and waterburst, to land whole and pinnacle reach, to shimmer shine of light on wave, of moon glow on broken glass, to face praise the world in the stroll hours of the park, to hear the lark music of argument in the pew wing of the fowl. Before anywhere, it begins in the seeing, alertness before the glory, in the bit sound of hammer pound from the spark and spray of smithies, in the watery forge behind the eye, where tears spring like iron to shoe the horse of sight's delight. Alertness, the soul's beam, light tunnel of praise through which to gain gallop the cup, the trophy, the thing won and earned by having been sought and found, glory, the lost sheep of joy. The dominion is wonder. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet. And that's from Psalm 8:6. The dominion is wonder. And I, the king, the glassy orb on throne of flesh and bone that partakes of the hour as if feasting on time. Every season of victual, a morsel of delight, savored and then remembered. No power, no lust in this, sheer appetite for the world, the inescapable greens and blues, palettes of ether and water into which to dip the eye's brush tip, as if in broad stroke the eye might possess the canvas the way a portrait does, face conjured from out of cloth and wood, his face, smoked mirror to our own. So I'm an Anglican, and this past week we had Ash Wednesday. So, and this was a poem I wrote about Ash Wednesday. At the beginning of Lent, Ash Wednesday. My mind is a brick, and nothing gets through. The porous sponge of my youth is desiccated into a slab of stone. Painting the ashes on such a surface is an idle act, or a leap of faith by the bestower. For the mind, while receiving this mortal dust of sacrifice, is wandering through the temple maze of cellars, wondering what to buy, eat in the morrow. Well, there'll be no sugar, caffeine, or even meat. The beans will need soaking, and the fish bought fresh. The sermon is about a recalcitrant camel made to suckle its mutant offspring, an oversized albino calf whose onerous birth caused the mother's heart to harden, become indifferent. My mind is that heart. The shepherds hire musicians, sing and rub the poor mother's neck, and finally teardrops glisten in that old Naga's eyes, and she is made to look on her child as if it were her own for the very first time. The brick, now sodden with tears, will keep in the moisture longer than you think. And when, through the doors of the church, I slip into the world, the ash will be in me like salt in the sea. So that's Alert to Glory, and Heart's Hydrography picks up where Alert to Glory left off. It's still a book contemplating wonder, but it's also a book about wonder and disappointment. And I think there's a couple of things that I realized when I'm putting together this book is that I still feel great wonder about the world, but I also feel disappointment in myself, in language, particularly as a poet, and trying to capture everything with language and how sometimes language is still stumbling to connect with the divine. So the first part of this book has poems on motherhood. So Andrea, I appreciate your poems about motherhood, because I have in this book quite a few poems about motherhood, and I'll just read the dedication to Heart's Hydrography because I think it's my children that sort of have helped me along in my journey of faith. Heart's Hydrography is a journey of the soul through the terrain of language. I dedicate this book to my children, Kenji and Seika, Dick, fellow travelers on this journey of yearning and inquiry. So this poem is called Holy Saturday. This is the Saturday before Easter Sunday, and in between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Holy Saturday. The sky is uncertain, clouding over 1 minute, letting the sun shine the next. Its inability to choose is a metaphor for my own lax state of belief. Indifference is what crucified him. I tell my only son while paring an apple. What? He says. What's indifference? Never mind, I reply. The light through the window has an unsettled look, and the wind is picking up, shaking the branches of the elm. The dog raises its head and hears something only it can hear. I slice the apple into quarters and give a piece to my son. In the kitchen, a lump of dough rises in the bread pan. So, as a parent, you want your kids to have people to look up to and to become. And I had this interesting experience with wanting my daughter to become a saint, but then I realized maybe not. Anyway, so this poem is called Holy Terror. Last night, I read to my daughter the Irish legend of Saint Brigid, whose devotion to God was so utter and fearless, she plucked out her own eyeball instead of marrying a man whose proposal she would not, could not accept. This was no woman of meekness, but a holy terror, fierce and fiery in her faith. My daughter, not put off so much by the saint's violence, is rather perturbed by Brigid's annoying habit of giving away her father's possessions to the poor. Brigid's father is also annoyed by this habit and complains bitterly of it to the king. I try explaining to my daughter that girls in medieval Ireland cannot have possessions, and Brigid is only treating her father's things as if they were gods. And of course, God would give away his possessions to the poor, wouldn't he? I want to feed my daughter stories of great saints and heroines like Saint Brigid. But frankly, such a woman terrifies me, and sadly, I admit to myself that I do not want my daughter to become a saint after all. I haven't read this poem before, but I think I'm going to continue on the daughter journey with this poem. After communion, or giving underage girls their first drink. The wine's aftertaste is sweet, Mummy, she reports to me in the pew. She's only 11, and she's been drinking the wine at the rail for a year now. Each time before that, the taste reported has been bitter. That's why they shouldn't give the kids the cup, my ex-evangelical friend grumbles. It's wasted on them. Nothing is wasted on children. It is bitter, I tell her, because his death was bitter. And she nods, understanding fully in only the way children can. How to explain then the sweet? His resurrection, surely? Or our memory of loving him, an aftertaste of his glorious death? Whatever. The man in the neighboring pew tells of his daughter's first time at the rail. She took a sip from the cup and swooned backwards, always the drama queen. Forbidden for the next 2 Sundays and chastened, her next approach to the rail was sober and solemn. The father, now the chastened one, wished he hadn't thought her drunk, or acting drunk, whatever the case might have been. For the girl had just tasted of the blood of Christ and knew it somehow. If she grows up to be the actress he thinks she will become, this is the one role he will always remember her for. I was talking with Anne about dogs, and she recently, she had a dog and a dog that she kept for a long time, and I had a dog too, and my dog just died in last March. So this is a poem dedicated to the dog, a dog poem for Bella. That amiable darkness that is my companion, that sits at the foot of my whirling dervish seat in front of the oracle screen and interwell, that pants, snuffles, sniffs in the just so hours at the leash, this god dog muse that is, like the writer, overweight and lonely, well and good that she is, to bring a certain levity into the house. What other matron might command such an audience as this? all waggle tail and tongue loll. The living in her is all a quiver. A shelter dog, she has a past, but does not dwell in it. Her joy and happiness is wordless. One can read all the poetry of the world to her, and she will not know its pleasure. But her love is certain. This is what her kind has been bred for, and we too, if only we knew it. I'm going to read this poem, Snow Globe, for my friend Mike. Mike has been following on Facebook. I do something in Winnipeg called mudlarking, where you go down to the river and you collect things off the riverbank. And there's a section of the Red River in Winnipeg where there's been a lot of stuff dumped over the years there, and you can find all sorts of fantastic bits of porcelain and old metal items and just wonderful pieces of glass and things like that. And I realized I was doing it a lot, and this poem actually is kind of connected to my rambling on the riverbank. Snow globe. I dreamt I found a snow globe in the riverbank, and inside its glassy orb, another globe. In that one, I was digging through another bank, this time of snow, as if that other I would never find myself in time. I awoke before I could pick up the globe, and that was when I wrote this down. Strangely, I remember not the image, for there was none, just the word snow globe pressed upon the mind like a heavy paperweight, insisting I write it down and make of it a poem. So I'm going to read some haiku. I live in Winnipeg, which is often referred to as Winterpeg. And it's very cold. And when I came here yesterday, it was like minus 25 with like wind chill that makes it minus 30. And I wrote a series of winter haiku. I went on a Zoom recently that had haiku readings on there, and I learned on that at that reading that you read the haiku twice. So I'm going to do that. And these are haiku that I wrote in winter, and so for the months of January and February and March. Winter haiku. I'll also say they're not all serious. January, resolute. Winter joggers and bikers make progress on snowy roads. Winter joggers and bikers make progress on snowy roads. Yes, people in Winnipeg will be biking when it's minus 30. Sundogs circling the sun, fingertips around a whitehead. Sundogs circling the sun, fingertips around a whitehead. Do any of you know what sundogs are? Yeah. They're these kind of things around the sun. Okay. Looking for the moon in the pale morning sky, like I would in my fingernail. Looking for the moon in the pale morning sky, like I would in my fingernail. February. Danger, thin ice, sign, in the middle of the river. Who put you there? Danger, thin ice sign, in the middle of the river. Who put you there? The amaryllis is giving the finger to winter. The amaryllis is giving the finger to winter. Warm spell. Creek, a muddled yellow. unable to decide whether to freeze or melt. Creek, a muddled yellow, unable to decide whether to freeze or melt. Mindfulness, how to walk the path without slipping on ice. Mindfulness, how to walk the path without slipping on ice. Last day of February, Shrove Tuesday, geese on river ice. Last day of February, Shrove Tuesday, geese on river ice. And then these two for March. Blizzard rumors. Glittering snowflakes swarm like white gnats on the back deck. Glittering snowflakes swarm like white gnats on the back deck. Howling wind outside. I hear you. What do you want? Howling wind outside. I hear you. What do you want? So I'm going to just read you the titular poem for Heart's Hydrography. This poem makes a reference to a devotional poet named Katharina Regina von Greifenberg, whose poetry is written in German, and she's a devotional poet, and I have been translating her work. And I have found it very helpful for me to translate her work because she has given me new words to describe my faith. And this is why I make a reference to her, because I think at this point in my life, spiritually, I needed a poet like this to help me reflect more deeply on spiritual matters. Heart's Hydrography. Those meanderings of the soul, how they spout or sputter, bubble and froth. There is deluge and flood, and then the sea, that undulating womb of water in which infant me is wafting. The poet Katharina channels, restrains, controls the flow of churlish water, winding its way through the heart's time terrain to saturate devotion's soil with prayer present wave after wave of words. The river in me is dried up, no longer capable of melt or sorrow. What happened to Gethsemane's tears? Its salt water turned to blood. Why are they not in me to bring me back to that sea which we in Spiritus Sanctus once were and still wish to be? I'm going to end with some poems of a Japanese poet, children's poet, whom I've translated with my aunt, Michiko Tsuboi, and they are found in this book, Are You an Echo? The Lost Poetry of Misuzu Kaneko. This poet, she wrote her poems and she didn't live very long. She wrote poems and then she submitted them to children's magazines in Japan in the 1920s and had them published. And then she had a rather tragic life, which is described in this book. And she took her life, actually, which was very sad. But she had a really a wonderful way at looking at living things and looking at life. And so I translated her with my aunt and really found her poetry quite amazing. So I'll just read a few poems by her. She was a real reader, an avid reader. She worked in a bookstore, and so she was always imagining things. So here's a poem about that. Beautiful town. Suddenly, I recall that town, the red rooftops along the riverbank, and then on the waters of that broad blue river, a white sail, quietly, quietly moving. And on the grass of the riverbank, a young man, an artist, idly staring at the water. And I? What was I doing? When I think I can't remember, I realize it was all a picture in a borrowed book. Snow pile. Snow on top must feel chilly, the cold moonlight piercing it. Snow on the bottom must feel burdened by the hundreds who tread on it. Snow in the middle must feel lonely, with neither earth nor sky to look at. Fish. I feel sorry for the fish in the sea. Rice is grown by people, cows are raised on pastures, even carp are fed in their ponds. But the fish in the sea, no one looks after them. They do no harm, and yet here I am about to eat one. I feel so sorry for the fish in the sea. Stars and dandelions. Deep in the blue sky, like pebbles at the bottom of the sea, lie the stars unseen in daylight until night comes. You can't see them, but they are there. Unseen things are still there. The withered, seedless dandelions, hidden in the cracks of the roof tile, wait silently for spring, their strong roots unseen. You can't see them, but they are there. Unseen things are still there. This was one of the most famous poems of Misuzu's. It's called Bird, Bell, and I, and I'll end with this one. Bird, bell, and I. Even if I spread my arms wide, I can't fly through the sky, but still the little bird who flies can't run on the ground as fast as I. Even if I shake my body about, no pretty sound comes out, but still the tinkling bell doesn't know as many songs as I. Bird, bell, and I, we're all different, and that's just fine. Thank you. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed this reading. Yes.